Hey everyone, my name is Adam Greenberg and I'm a reporter for SC Magazine. This session is titled Protecting Data in a Mobile World, sponsored by FiberLink. Our presenter today is David Lingenfelter, Information Security Officer with FiberLink. David heads security and compliance at FiberLink, and altogether he has more than 20 years of experience with risk management, information security, compliance, and policy development. Mobile technology has introduced significant risks, and the threats reach far beyond lost and stolen devices. With Bring Your Own Device programs being popular for their promise of increased productivity, organizations must also secure the mobile interactions of employees, contract or temporary workers, and business partners. For more, I'd like to welcome David. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks, Adam. It's great being here. As Adam mentioned, I'm going to talk today about protecting data in the mobile world. And that's kind of a big thing these days. Really, with the mobile landscape, what it is, it's evolving and constantly changing every single day. It's not just about the changing of mobile devices and release of a new version of operating system for a device or a new phone or a new tablet, but just all about mobile, whether it's the mobile phones and tablets or whether it's a mobile car that has Wi-Fi built into it or your internet-connected house or anything like that. Everything is connected to mobile. So the landscape is changing, and it goes beyond even just the technology, where it's changing us, and it's changing how we do business and how businesses perceive us and how businesses want to do business with us as individuals. So the mobile landscape is a lot more than just the technology behind it. And as such, we need to think differently, and we need to understand differently. It's not just another device that's going to be gone in a couple of years, but it's a new way of doing business, and it's a new way of dealing with business. And that's shown through easily in just some of the recent trends. I mean, we're being told that by next year there will be over 2 billion smartphones in the world. That's a huge number considering how young technology is. On top of that, we're also looking at over 268 billion downloads, apps being downloaded to these devices. That is a huge number, and it's a change from what we're used to, where only just a few years ago in business, it was just a few apps being used across the enterprise and by people in the enterprise. Now we're downloading apps every single day, new ones every single day. And businesses are seeing this, and they're seeing that it's not just us wanting to play with a new technology, but it's this new technology allowing us to be more productive and be productive in ways that we've never been able to be before. IT organizations are seeing this, and they're shifting their budgets. We see here one of the quotes is that IT organizations will dedicate at least 25% of their software budget to mobile application development, deployment, and management by 2017. That's how huge this has become. It's the new enterprise. It's the new way of doing business. It's the new IT. No longer are we going to have huge desktops with big monitors. It's all going to be focused around mobile, and it's all going to be focused on being mobile and being able to use the technology wherever, whenever, in order to get access to the corporate data. So with that comes the flip side. The bad guys want a piece of the action also. It's not just about businesses wanting to use the technology for good. The bad guys realize that if something's this popular, they need to take advantage of it as well. So we're seeing new threats at a rate of 387 new threats every minute. It's more than 6 every second. So we're seeing these threats. We're seeing these new attack vectors come in. Mobile devices, we're saying now nearly 100% of the top Android apps have a hacked variant to them. Similarly, almost 90% of iOS apps, of the top iOS apps, have hacked variants. If you don't go to the Apple iTunes Store or to the Google Play Store, you download your apps from someplace else, there's a very high likelihood that those apps have already been hacked and have been compromised in some way. So with this comes all these new threats, all these new technologies that are both helping us and hurting us at the same time. So we have this approach of businesses having to both deploy the new technology in order to use it and protect it at the same time. So what are some of these concerns that come up? One of the bigger concerns of companies right now is really just the devices being stolen or lost. It's one of the top concerns. 57% say that that's their biggest concern. And yet only 60% are enforcing passcodes for the devices because they don't have central management, or they don't feel it's important enough, or they don't feel there's enough information that can be gotten through the devices yet. Similarly, data leak is another one. What information is going out, flowing through these devices? Maybe the end users are doing it on their own without even knowing that it's a security concern. Half of the people are saying that's their top concern. But again, only about 60% are saying they're using some sort of a container, some sort of a data security technology to help them there. And those may sound bad, but when we get to these bottom two numbers, it's even worse. When we start talking about the breadth of technology that's part of mobile, 52% are concerned about application vulnerabilities. And yet only 23% of people have put in some sort of tamper-proofing capability to make sure that the apps they're installing or that their end users are using have not been tampered with and have not been hacked, or does not create a vulnerability which is exposing information. Similarly, 32% are saying they're concerned about fraudulent transactions, things that are happening on their devices without the end users knowing. And yet only 18% are saying they can detect malware or jailbreaks on their devices. So these numbers are just beginning and the tip of the iceberg here, where IT really wants to deploy this, companies want to deploy this technology, and yet they're still struggling with how do we protect it? How do we take advantage of this new technology in a way that's safe and productive for us in our business? And that's where we need to think a little differently. Security has always worked in a model of security layered defense approach. Multiple layers, you can get in so far, and then you hit another wall, and you have to get through that wall, and authentications and authorizations. And that's been at the enterprise level. On the network level, with the PCs, with the servers, everything's had its layer of security. Well, now we have to think of mobile as a huge component of that enterprise. And the mobile devices themselves also have to have layers of security and layers of defense. And that's where I'm going to switch here in a minute and start talking about what those different areas of security are, whether it's about the hardware itself, or it's the applications on the device, or it's how do we manage the data on the device. This is really where I'm going to focus the rest of today's conversation, is on this concept of layered defense on the mobile devices itself. Rather than not allowing users to use the device to their full potential, or somehow forcing the users to use the mobile devices the same way you would use a laptop or a desktop in the past, we want to make sure that IT and security is armed with the best technology they can in order to use these devices to their fullest potential. And it's not just technology that needs to change and be introduced. It's the role and the focus of IT and of security, because these devices are used in many different ways. I always like to use the example of laptops used to be deployed by the IT team after they were set up, after they were hardened, after all the software was put on them that was needed by the end user, and then the end users couldn't do anything with them except use them exactly how the IT team wanted them to be used. Mobile devices are just the opposite. People are bringing their own mobile devices, whether it's BYOD or it's just the latest technology that they're getting into the business. Sometimes they're being used as kiosks or cart devices. Think of a warehouse or a hospital where devices are being shared by the staff members for different roles. IT has to look at this and say, now I'm going to have different people using the same device in different ways, and they need different access and different software and different applications to do their job. It's no longer a one-for-one where each person has their own laptop. Now we've got this technology that's constantly changing, even throughout a single day. So IT needs to change how they focus and change what they're focused on. And this is really where the security framework, this defense in depth approach, comes into play here. We start with protection of the devices. We then move on to securing the content and collaboration, being able to use the content between multiple devices and use these devices in such a way that people can communicate with one another and work with one another without having to even be in the same room or in the same building. And then we're going to talk about safeguarding the applications and the data, working up our layered stack here to the applications and data. And the data is really the important part, because we don't own the devices anymore. These are individual devices, personal devices owned by the end users. We don't own the applications anymore. They're downloading these for free or for pennies from the internet. So what do we own? We own the data, and that's what we need to protect. And then we need to manage the access and manage the fraud. So this is where I'm going to spend the bulk of the rest of the conversation, is talking about each of these areas and how they can be implemented by companies to help protect their data. So we'll start with protecting devices. Every 3 minutes, a mobile device is wiped out there. We look at all the numbers on this page here, and it really shows you the difference between how we function now and how we functioned 5 or 10 years ago. These numbers to me are staggering. I've been in this industry for over 20 years. I'm a huge advocate of mobile devices, but looking at these numbers really makes my eyes open up. 87% of the millennials are saying they have their smartphone by their side day and night. I unfortunately also fall into that category, but the point is they're always there, they're always on, they're always connected. 78% say they're spending over 2 hours a day using their smartphones, whether it's on calls or email or chat or looking at applications or whatever. 2 hours a day being spent using these devices. 68% are saying their mobile devices are personal to them. They're their devices. They get what they want. They set them up the way they want to. This is a big change. All of these factors are big changes for IT and security to accept in a corporate marketplace where in the past, corporate IT, corporate security has really called the shots and said, here's what you're allowed to use, here's how you're allowed to use it. This slide here really shows that that's not the case anymore. Today, it's all about the end user getting what they want, using it how they want to. And you look at the bottom numbers here, 87% of internet technology total sales is made up by mobile devices. 46% say their smartphone is something they couldn't live without. I mean, this is a change. In the past, people would be more than willing to leave their laptop at home or even at the office rather than having to cart it around with them. Now they're saying they have to have it by their side all the time. So we have to come up with ways of protecting these devices. They're small. They get lost easily. They can get stolen easily. And we always have them with us. So no matter where we are, there's always a risk that something's going to happen to them. Excuse me. So how do we protect the devices? We have to look at different ways of doing it. We identify and respond to the device, whether it's accessing the corporate network or not. We have to deploy and manage multiple OSs across an environment, including bring your own devices. So do we want to wipe an entire device, or do we want to pull off just the corporate information from the device and leave the rest of the information on there because it's personal and it's not the company's data to manage? And then we have to also understand that these devices are never going to connect to our corporate network. So we have to be able to remotely provision them and be able to push policies to them and be able to create restrictions depending on where these devices are. Perhaps sometimes the device will be near the corporate network, or maybe it will be in the corporate offices, and you would want to allow that device to have more access to systems and information. Where if we find that it's on a public network, it may be a shared hotspot somewhere, we're going to want to limit what the devices can get to and what they can do. And then identifying devices at risk. So we want to make sure that the devices are not going to be in these risky environments sometimes. We want to make sure if they are in these risky environments that we have control over them and make sure that we're not allowing them to get to the critical corporate data that we might if they were in our network. And then we want to make sure the networks are protected that they get on. You're not going to want them on a public Wi-Fi that doesn't have encryption. So these are all things that we can control of these devices and that we want to start controlling and make sure that we continue to control centrally. And that's why we need to manage these devices. All the devices are capable of doing these things, but we need to manage it centrally. And it's hard to do that in a heterogeneous environment like we have now, where you may have some people using Android devices, some using Windows devices, some using Apple, all using different devices. Those are not all going to natively talk to each other and natively be managed the same way. You need to put down a management layer on top of there. And the next layer is securing the content and collaboration. So 60% of employees are saying they access content from outside of the office. That number seems a little low to me, but that's because I'm part of this mobile industry. But 60% of employees are no longer needing to be in the office to get to their corporate data. that makes people lose sleep at night, makes security officers lose sleep at night, and makes IT people lose sleep at night because they don't know where this data is going. It's leaving their secure realm. It's leaving their castle. 64% of decision makers read their email via mobile devices. So these are big numbers, and they're just growing every single day. More and more people are getting the mobile devices and using them on a day-to-day basis. 59% of companies allow their employees to share and collaborate on documents if the company provides the mobile device. So this is that whole collaboration thing where it's no longer necessary to create a document, send it to somebody, have them edit it, send it back to you. Now we can collaborate and actually create documents, create spreadsheets, and share them amongst each other and work on them on these mobile devices and actually build maybe even a presentation through these mobile devices. And that's another number that's just going to continue to grow. So how are we securing the content? How are we dealing with this collaboration? First thing we have to do is understand that if these are personal devices, even if they're corporate devices, we have to separate data, and we have to contain the data in some way. So by creating a corporate container on these devices, putting a management application on there that takes all the corporate data and isolates it from other applications, from other systems, from being able to share out through other systems. One thing, you might have an attachment in an email, a corporate email that comes out to your device. Well, it's very easy to save that attachment and then use a personal email to send that attachment someplace else. With the data protection, with this container approach to data protection, that's not possible because the personal email client is outside of the container, so it cannot get to the information that's inside the container. So even if you save an attachment from an email onto the mobile device, it's still being saved inside this corporate container and protected within the corporate container. And then it also allows us to now get secure access to sensitive data. So as opposed to the mobile devices that are out there on the internet, shared hotspot, maybe in your home, maybe near the soccer field or baseball field, being able to come and get to limited resources like email, now with the secure container and a gateway on your network, you can allow these devices back into your network securely and safely to get them into internal information, intranet sites, internal applications that are only accessible from inside your network. We can create those virtual network tunnels to these devices and be able to enforce the compliance policy and security policies that the company needs to enforce in order to protect the data. And this can all be done, again, with this container approach to security, making sure that the managed applications are on there and are managed by the corporate IT and security teams. Then we have to make sure the applications and the data are secure. Again, we're going up the stack here, and the data is, at the end of the day, the most important components. These devices are going to keep changing. The footprint of the devices, the type of technology we're using are going to keep changing, but the data is going to remain consistent. That's what we own. That's our intellectual property. So they're saying 76% overall mobile app usage growth in 2014. That means that people were using 76% more mobile apps than the year before. This is a huge jump. This is the big shift when it comes to mobile devices. Using them, having email, having phone conversations, text messages, that's been around for years. But by converting these mobile devices into the new platform that everybody is using for all of their business needs, that's where the shift has come in and really has turned the market and changed the industry. And it has also brought the eyes of all the hackers and the bad guys out there that want to steal our data. Because they're saying right now 75% of all mobile security breaches are through applications. So again, these are applications that have security flaws in them. They may be hijacked or hacked applications that people have installed on their devices coming from other stores other than, again, the primary player stores. And it goes back to the earlier slide showing that nearly 100% of the Android market has hacked variants and nearly 90% of the Apple market has hacked variants of their applications. This is a huge problem and a huge concern for companies because, again, employees are downloading whatever apps they want to for their personal use. And if you don't have that container that we just spoke about, along with the protection and safeguarding of applications, these applications will be able to take any information they want to off of the devices. But by putting in this layered approach and protecting and isolating the corporate data, and now being able to detect applications, rogue applications, or malicious applications, now we're going to be able to do some of that protection. And when it comes to mobile apps, less than half, about 33%, are saying that they don't test them. They don't ensure their own safety. They're assuming they're safe. Bad practice, but I wouldn't say it's an abnormal practice. This has been going on for years. You buy a product and you assume that it's going to be safe. Not everybody's going to go through a full security or penetration test of every product they buy. And now with applications coming out here in the millions, we're certainly not going to be able to do that either. Another 2.2 billion malicious attacks on computers and mobile devices were blocked during Q1 of 2015. Those were the ones that got blocked. That doesn't count the ones that got through. So while we're doing a good job of getting them blocked, if this number is evident of the less than one-third of people, or about one-third of people testing these applications, we have to assume that even more of these malicious attacks are actually getting through. So what are we doing? How do we protect and safeguard the applications and the data? So we, again, by putting this container on, putting this mobile device management, enterprise management tool on the devices, we can now prevent the deployment of risky applications. We can rate applications and rate application types and say that you're not allowed to have certain types of applications or certain thresholds of dangerous applications on your devices, whether they're in the container or not. And then we can protect the application data. So we can take any application and wrap it in a technology to ensure that it's encrypted, that the data inside the application remains encrypted, and that during transport or when the data is in motion, we can ensure that the technology is protecting the data at all times. So now we can take any app and make sure that it's secure. We can do this, and then we can figure out how do we want to deploy these applications. Do we want to put all of our corporate applications out on the public app store, or do we want to have our own private app store and be able to control how and when the apps are deployed, to whom they're deployed to, and maybe say we can deploy an app today and remove it tomorrow. So we want to put some safeguards in place, and we want to make sure that we're controlling all the different levels and layers of the applications and of the systems. And this gets us up to the managing access and fraud. The Cybervore gang amassed 4.5 billion records, mostly consisting of stolen credentials, and this was just coming from all over the place. They robbed over 420,000 websites and FTP sites to get these credentials. So your identity is out there. It's a matter of making sure you protect it, making sure that you've controlled it, and making sure that you've limited what can happen if the credentials are stolen. They're saying now $6.53 million is the average cost of a U.S. data breach. We can look at some of the big names in the retail space over recent years who have been breached and have been hacked, and it all comes down to how much was taken, what was the value of it, and what did you have to do after the fact to protect yourself even further. So how are we managing this on the mobile devices? We're distributing, delivering mobile security capabilities in various ways, whether it's through web services or web APIs, or even through traditional web access. And we're doing this through secure channels, secure tunnels, and making sure that it ties into corporate security policies. So these mobile devices, again, they're going to be anywhere in the world. They're going to want to access, people are going to want to access their corporate credentials. We need to tie that in and somehow make sure that we have the ability through the container approach, through the application protection approach, and then through this notion of a proxy to get back into the corporate network. We call it an extender, a cloud extender, to get back into the corporate network. And then beyond there, it's making sure that the latest security features are not being ignored. Make sure that we're always on top of things. So along with this mobile growth and this mobile explosion, the same thing has been happening in the space of cloud. And so the two tie very closely together. If you've got mobile devices and you're using cloud, they go hand in hand. They really don't exist without one another. So to manage them in an environment that is similar to what they're used to being used in makes it much faster, much more agile to be able to get to the new features, be able to implement the new technologies to add additional security, rather than saying a new version of the application came out, so now we have to go through and test and upgrade it and upgrade all of our hardware that we use to manage these devices. If it's managed through cloud services, that's all being done in real time. So the end users and the IT administrators don't really have to worry about, are we going to be able to use the latest features, or worse, are we going to miss security patches that are coming out because we have to deploy and we have to test everything. If it's all in the cloud, it's all happening in real time. And so what I've been talking to up to this point is really about the MAZ 360 product and the suite of functionality that it has, between being able to manage the device, make sure that we can wipe the corporate data from the device, we can password protect the device, we can put a container on the device to isolate the corporate information from personal, make sure that we are putting good applications on the device, making sure the applications are safe, and then making sure that our access back into the corporate network is protected, making sure that we do validation of authorization into the corporate network. So if I'm a user, I have certain access to certain systems, but if I'm that same user on a public Wi-Fi or public hotspot, maybe I have less access. And that's what I've talked to up to this point. Now I want to talk just briefly about extending that security intelligence into other systems, into log aggregation systems. Attackers spend an estimated 243 days on a victim's network before being discovered. And that's because we don't have enough visibility into the network, into all the different aspects of the network, because we're not centralizing our logs and we're not pulling it all together and into a log management system that can really view all the different aspects and components of all the traffic taking place and all the activity taking place throughout our networks, whether it's back at our databases, or on our middle tier, on our web tier, or even out on the mobile devices themselves. We're saying the annual U.S. cost now of cybercrime is $11.56 million per organization. That's to protect it and then to deal with any issues if a breach does take place. 63% of the victims were made aware of breaches by an external organization, meaning it was after their data has already gotten out. Their own systems didn't even detect it. It wasn't until the information started leaking on the internet or being exposed on the internet that they were actually found out that they had been a victim. So making sure that we have this log aggregation in place, taking all this information that we're pulling from the mobile devices, combine it with all the information we're already pulling from our firewalls and our IDS systems and our application logs, putting that all together will help us have better visibility and be able to extend our security intelligence throughout the network. And really, I kind of went over this already, but being able to detect the more sophisticated attacks, being able to implement multiple products to pull all the data together into a single product or a single front end that we can manage and we can view and we can see a larger picture of what's happening throughout our network at all times. And that really brings me to the summary here. In order to really take advantage of the mobile technology, we have to embrace this new concept of mobile security, rather than just password or wiping the device. But we need to understand how the devices are going to be used, the risks of the devices, the risk of the data on the devices, and really the identity of the people, and making sure that we take this layered approach and apply it across the board for all of our mobile devices through a centralized management system, through an enterprise mobility management system like MAZ 360. And that really brings me to the end. I want to thank everybody for their time and turn it back over to Adam real quick.
All right. Well, thank you for all that great insight, David. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this session today. Just a reminder that this session will be available tomorrow on scmagazine.com in our events section. At this point, we invite you to join us in our virtual expo hall, where you can visit the FiberLink booth and chat with staff to answer any additional questions. Many thanks to David Lingenfelter for being with us today and sharing all of that great information. And of course, thanks to all of you for tuning in.
Great, thanks.